if you've ever been scrolling to social media lately, you will know and you will see this pattern of students, teachers, it really doesn't matter, synchronous or asynchronous, really doesn't matter, that they are struggling with online classes. The transition from face to face learning to online classes and online learning. And so, why is that, right? A good factor to that, and we have to ask ourselves on why that happens and why everybody is struggling with this. Okay, given there's a pandemic and every normal, conceivable normal that we have considered back then is now somewhat changed or altered. And so the transition period between that, I would like to say, is about closing into 5, maybe even 6 months before we really got started into classes. Now, is half a year or seemingly ostentatiously close a half a year enough? We have to remember that before the pandemic began and the real change that the pandemic gave us began, we have to remember that pretty much our entire life we are living that kind of system, right? If not our entire life, that kind of learning and that kind of teaching for teachers. And so my take on this is this: we are products and we have been accustomed to the product and the processes of the past, and now we're trying to be where we could be able to fit in the new normal, on a new process, on a new product that no one has ever seen before. It's unprecedented, right? And so this video is going to be more about the principles that you can do in order to learn more. I know the title of this video is how to learn more and effectively, but really it really tackles down to a much deeper level, and a deeper level and a greater level in a sense that you can work on this on any kind of change that comes into your life, right? So that you will become ready. A teacher of mine called me last night and told me that success is just opportunity, is just where opportunity and preparation meet. Now it's a quote, like it's a really known quote. I forgot who really said that, but basically that's the quote. And so he shared this to me. And so why am I talking about this? The reason for this is because I think that this was 3 nights ago. A friend of mine, actually I don't know this person like quite particularly, but how it started is this, right? And our group chat, very casual conversation, and just like it's just like hi, how are you, just like that. And what happened was, out of the blue, she asked me about something that is, or that requires something that's about the school. Like, Carl, what is the most effective way or time for studying? And before I could text her, before I could reply, she ultimately gave me all of these stuff that backs it up. Well, I've heard from this person that you have to rise up really early, and that's where you can really read your notes, and chances are that you will remember it. And then she told all of these stuff, and right over at the very end of the paragraph, in the sentences that she's trying to say, is that, but I don't feel like doing that. The term that she used is nakakatamad. Basically, what that means is that it's not for you, right? Is time really that relevant when we're studying? Like, really think about it. How many time have you studied in one particular time that you could say that's okay? I'm a night guy. I always study at nighttime, and that's just the way for me. Or maybe you're someone who just, well, time for me isn't that relevant. I could study while commuting in jeepneys, and it's just going to be the same. I don't limit myself to just one time frame, and it could be different for everybody, and we'll get into that much deeper later. Okay, so I actually joke to her, like, well, if you want to know the answer, like, watch Business Talks with Carl in the next episode. But I really want to help her there, and so I gave her like this concise idea of what I want to make of this episode of. And so I told her, you know what, Faith, the easy way of answering that question, the easy way of answering the question is just by saying that it depends. But what can we possibly get out of the answer of it depends, right? It's true that it's each and every person in the world in every lifetime is different from everybody else. That's true, that's a fact. But isn't it also true that we are fundamentally different from where we are, even just yesterday, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and we're going to be constantly be growing and be constantly be changing. My version of myself right now isn't necessarily the Carl that you would meet about 5 years ago, right? That Carl has different belief structures, have different belief systems, and the same goes for you. Who are you 5 years ago might not necessarily be 100% copy of who you are today, right? Am I right? Okay. So really, I started out with that premise. And I've told her a story about, well, way back in elementary, I have a tutor. And lower elementary level, this is what happened. After lunch, that's dismissal time. And after dismissal time, that's the time for tutor. And so that's the time for learning for me after school. And then we would know that from the later parts of elementary school, what will happen is that the dismissal time would be on afternoons. So every afternoon, up until to early nighttime, that's the study time for me. So that's what happened. So is time really relevant or not? Because in high school, I didn't study. I didn't have a tutor, and I would only study during exams and really important quizzes or really important subjects and topics that I really cared about. And so that's what it is. So what is the bottom line here? What are we trying to see on where we could model where the commonality that we can help grow into? And so if you really study here and you really study what is the peak time for you to study, it's that the peak time for you to study is when you feel like it. That's the common value of all of these, regardless of whatever time it is. The quality is what matters, right? If you feel like studying, that's what matters. Now, the question is, how do you feel like it? You just say to yourself, well, I feel like studying today. Is that it? You just say to yourself like all of these affirmations like, hey, I want to study, I want to study, I want to study, I want to study. How many times have you said that to yourself? And then ultimately you're studying, you're pumped up, and you're ready to go. And then all of these books, you have all of these papers ready. And then after about around 10 minutes, you find yourself scrolling to your phone again. Like you're completely distracted. And right now you're completely tired. All of a sudden, and you just woke up. You just have had your cup of coffee. Why is that? Why is that when we feel, regardless, because some people, I might say, the huge disclaimer, a lot of people, some people, right? The really special ones, the really special ones, regardless of where they are, right? Noise, traffic, jeepney, what have you, regardless of what the circumstance is, they can study. And why is that? Is because they train their mind to be able to do that. But most importantly, that comes on along to what I would like to say, and I would like to believe as number one is biological, and number two is something that you can train for. But we're talking about today that's something that you can do right now, because that takes a whole lot of practice, and perhaps in another video we can probably do something about that, and I would be happy to do that. But for now, let's look into the things that you can start to change right now to be able to magnify and absolutely change whatever it is that you want to change for the better in your study habits. Okay, sounds good? Sounds fair? All right, moving on. Okay, so how many times have you tried cramming every bit of information? Like before an exam, before a major quiz, like we find ourselves with all of these papers, all of these copies, all of these PowerPoints, all of this literature that we have to cram into our brain. How many times have you find yourself in that? How many times have you studied and actually remembered a whole lot of it, right? How many? Because we have this adage that says that haste creates waste, right? Haste creates waste. So we have this adage that in terms of cramming, you're not learning, right? There's this common belief that in terms of cramming, we're not learning. But when we look back, our cramming sessions has been beneficial to us. Our cramming sessions has actually benefited us in terms of memorizing just itsy bitsy parts of information that we can actually use. That's true. We can learn from cramming. That's just a fact, right? I would be lying to you if I say that cramming you can absolutely learn. But a problem with learning from cramming is that we ultimately forget it. How many cramming sessions that you've had where you absolutely remember this date, you absolutely remember this person at that time, and before you go to exam, you're like, who's that again? Who's that again? Ah, that's Jose Rizal. But ultimately, after a while, you forgot what that is, or what that information is linked to. Why is that? Because cramming comes from an emotion where you don't feel like it. You don't feel like doing it. Cramming comes from an emotion on terms of studying where you don't want to do that thing. You don't want to, your body's full of cortisol, you're stressed out, and you're just doing it just to pass the exam. And you're cramming all of these information together. And so what happens when you do things in a negative state? What happens when you do things in a negative emotion? Negative results. It might give you some pointers, and it might help you remember some of the things, some of the key terms, but after a while it easily gets flushed away. And the reason for this is because your body doesn't like it. Your body is naturally detests all of these things that is going to be bad for you in the long term. Like, okay, this information is nice, but it made you feel bad. I don't think I would like this to linger on your brain anymore, Carl. So I'm gonna remove it. You see where I'm coming from right here? So it's all about habits and rituals. And we're going to go through that in a much deeper level. Isn't it true that for an exam we prepare, right? For a job interview, we prepare. From one major task or quiz, we prepare. That's true, right? Why isn't it true for learning? Why isn't it true for studying? Why is that? Why is it only true for all of these things that's seemingly important? Is studying and learning not important? You see, it is absolutely important to prepare for studying. And to a lot of people, you might necessarily, consciously or unconsciously, you're either doing it or you're not doing it. A whole lot of my friends that I've actually talked to over for this video to be in reality, I've actually asked them, what are your rituals before you start studying? And they've shared to me that some of them, well, they have to have this jug of water before they started. Before they even got started, they have to have a nice warm cup of coffee. Some people would have to have all the sets of their highlighters ready, right? All of these sticky notes that's ready. And really, we have different kinds of rituals, different kinds of habits that will let us be comfortable. And a great emphasis in the word comfortable, because with comfort, can we really start to become ready towards that feeling of, I feel like it. I feel like studying today. Everything is perfect, everything is nice and fine and dandy. I think I'm gonna start today. Right? The temperature is good, the weather is good, the music is right? Some people listen to classical music, like Albert Einstein. He would listen to classical music, right? I don't know if it's Mozart in particular, but Einstein would listen to classical music. And maybe that's your cup of tea as well. And if so, then listen to classical music. Some people would listen to like really loud music, like rock music, in the terms in a way that they couldn't hear anything else. Some people cannot stand music, and if you're someone that's like that, just they want this complete silence, like complete solace and solitude, and they would be able to be just there in the moment where everything is calm, everything is quiet, and they breathe in the moment, be in the Zen state or something like that. And it really goes back to all your own rituals. And the importance to that is that you have to know your rituals consciously, because you might be doing it unconsciously right now, but really, and the reason why this is absolutely important for you to know is because that is your body's way of telling and communicating to you, wow, Carl, I really like classical music while you're studying. Why don't you do that more often? And sometimes you don't listen to that. Sometimes you don't listen to that. We just do it for the sake of doing it. But when we really try and reflect, that study session, I've actually realized and I actually remembered a whole lot of things. What did I do during that study session that's different from every other study sessions that I did? It's the temperature. It's not too cold and it's not too hot. It's not too warm. Ah, it's the cup of coffee. Ah, it's this particular brand of coffee, right? And it's different for everybody else. So the lessons I'm trying to say here is this: each and every one of us is unique. Now use your uniqueness to your advantage. Let me say that again. Use your uniqueness to your advantage. Okay? And so here's the thing. We don't prepare for it, and so much preparation doesn't only come from that day from that day. We must remember that we can prepare for today from yesterday, and we can prepare for tomorrow from today. The best preparation is the best preparation for today isn't the preparation that happened today. The best preparation for today happened yesterday, and the best preparation for tomorrow will happen today. Thank you all very much, and I hope you've learned something tonight or today, whatever it's called.